Hi, I'm Marty Sherbecoe. My friends call me the bread man. Today I'm going to make a bread. I'm going to use ciabatta dough, which is a very, very wet dough. But I'm not going to make a ciabatta. I'm actually going to make a couple of loaves out of it that would be suitable for making a sandwich or for other purposes. It'll be a lot different because the crumb will be very light and airy. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bowl of my mixer and I'm going to just give it a little bit of oil. Just enough so that the dough doesn't stick quite as much to the sides of the bowl. There's no sugar going to be in this bread, no fats, no oils other than this little bit, which I'm wiping on to the side of the bowl. Okay. Now I have 14 ounces of water, and I held back a quarter of a cup, which is 4 ounces. And I've got it over there, and I'm going to put all this water in here now. And I think I said 4 ounces. What I meant was 4 tablespoons. Anyway, it's a quarter of a cup that you hold back. Now I'm going to put my sour culture in. This sour culture, I got this culture about 10 years ago, and it was from the Griffith family. And this culture was first started on the Oregon Trail back in 1847. I've had mine here about a good 10 years, I'm sure. And it's a good sour. It has a lot of flavor to it. And I'm sure that being used so many times and being refed so many times, it's probably adapted itself to whatever wild yeast is flying around here in Arizona. But it's been a good yeast, a good culture for me. Adds a lot of flavor to my bread. All right, just put that in the sink. And now I'll take my paddle, put my bucket back onto my machine. And I'll take the paddle attachment. This is a 6-quart KitchenAid. And I'm going to run it real slow just to incorporate the sour. And that's going to take about 3 minutes. I have 18 ounces of flour here. I'm using Pendleton's Power Flour. I like it because it has a lot of gluten, a lot of protein. It's 13.5. And I'm going to put in some yeast here, and this yeast is Saf Instant, and that's made by LaSaf. And I like the Gold Instant because it's a slow rising, and it's not a fast rising. Slow rising gives me time to get a long proof is what I want on this bread. And you know, the word instant doesn't mean instant, really. What it means is that all the granules are alive. When you just get plain yeast, granulated yeast, the outer coating is dead. So you get better here because all the granules are alive yeast. Yeast is a living organism. Anyway, also this yeast is said that it's a osmotolerant. That means if my sour happens to be real sour, or if I'm making cinnamon buns and it's a sweet dough, the yeast doesn't mind. It works just as well. Now I'm also going to put in just a tiny amount, a half a teaspoon of let's see what it is, because oh yeah, that's diastatic malt, and I'm going to put that in. And the reason I never used to put the yeast in the flour until a number of years ago, when I talked to the people at Lesaf yeast company. They said, no, put the yeast in the flour, it's better. Now I just mix it up. Okay, now I'm going to put all this flour into my sour and water mixture. Now, this bowl has what they call flanges, and the flange can run all the way around, or it can be just like this at two ends. But the idea of the flange is that when I have this dough ready after its first rise, I have to dump it out onto my board, and I can't get my hands near it because it's a very, very sticky dough. So that's why you need a bowl and with the flanges, and this is a 3-quart bowl, which works perfect for this recipe. All right, I'm gonna put this into my machine here, and I'm going to use what is known as a spiral dough hook. And I'm going to run this real slow to mix that. And that's going to, once I get that into a ball, it's going to run for about 5 minutes. 5 minutes are up, and I've got all this mixed, all this dough is now mixed. And now I'm going to add the salt. You don't add the salt right away because we want to get the gluten working, and the salt toughens it, so we hold back on the salt. But now I'm going to put in the salt. It'll be 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now I put the salt, I don't sprinkle it, I put it all in one place. And now I'm going to take a teaspoon of water, and I'm going to put it right on the salt to help it dissolve. And now I'm going to let the machine and the dough rest for 20 minutes. The French call that autolyse. And it makes sure that everything, all the flour is fully hydrated, and it also gives the gluten a chance to relax. So put this. Now I use these bags as a sheet, and they work out real good. Actually, what they are is a vegetable bag that you get in the supermarket. And you just take the bags home after you take the vegetables out, and then I save these and I use them to cover up. So now it's going to sit here for 20 minutes. Okay, our 20 minutes are up, and the dough is relaxed pretty well. Looks nice. And now I'll save this plastic because I'm going to need it later. And now I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it here. I got to run it for 4 minutes to get the salt incorporated. And now comes a little bit of the tricky part. Take this over onto the bench here, counter, and here's something I found out through trial and error. While the spiral dough hook is excellent for mixing the dough, when I put the balance of the water that I held back, put that in, I found that the older hook, known as the C hook, actually works better. You can get the water back in with the spiral hook, but the C hook does do it faster. So I was glad that KitchenAid still made the C hook when they came out with the spiral recently. Alright, now we'll put this back in the machine. And we've already got the gluten pretty well developed. And getting water back into a dough after the gluten is developed takes a little while. But it works real good using this C hook. Now it's got to go really slow. And then I have to play with it a little bit. If it starts to climb out of my bowl, because I think I'm going to get a face full, of course I'll drop it right away. But it looks like it's going pretty good here. And this is going to take roughly about 5 minutes for me to get the water, all the water back into the dough. And all the dough is turning on the hook, and it just needs to run for about a minute or two more, and the dough is done. On the hook and turning, both sides of the bowl are nice and clean, and we have a beautiful soft dough, nice and smooth, and we'll be ready to put this in the bowl for its first rise. Now I've oiled this bowl up a little bit so it won't be too hard to get it out of there. But I'm dealing with a very, very soft dough. But soft dough, I have to admit, makes good bread. Excuse me. When I scrape like this, it isn't that I need this last little bit of dough. It just makes it easier to wash the bowl out. Okay, put this in a sink. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a little bit of the oil up that's on the bottom so that the cover, when I put the plastic on here, it'll release easy. It's one sticky dough. Shake it down a little. And now we put the plastic on the top, and I use regular like saran wrap. Get it on good and tight. And this is gonna, I'll put this in a fairly warm place, 90 degrees or so if I have it, otherwise it'll take longer, but it should take just about an hour for this to rise to the top. Meanwhile, I can get ready for what I'm going to do next. Okay, well, the hour is up and I see my dough has risen nicely for the first rise, and now I want to take this cover off, and I want to take it off real slow so I don't take any dough with it. And I just go real gentle and slow. As long as I don't go too fast, it's going to come out okay. Almost there. Almost there. You can see how sticky this dough is now. There it is. It came out clean. And now comes the tricky part. I have to dump the dough out. And here we go. Now don't shake it or jiggle it, or slide it all around. It'll come out. It just takes its time. One more little place out in the back there. That's a sticky to soft dough. Okay. Alright, put that in the sink. Now, the only way I'm going to be able to even handle this dough is to get some flour on it. I get a lot of flour. And then what I'll do is I'll brush off the excess. Okay, now take my brush and just get some of this excess off of here. Get this all brushed off. Okay. Now, I'll get a lot of this excess off. It's still good flour. I like this Pendleton flour. It's good flour. It's high protein content. And there's other good flours too. I've made this bread using Cairo. But I like the Pendleton. Seems nice to work with. Okay. Now, get this excess flour out of my way. Square this up. Now if it sticks, it means I've got to put a little more flour over here. Maybe a little on here. I want to get it into a rectangle. And of course, I got a bubble there. I'm going to break that bubble. The corn holder works real good. You can break that bubble down there and one over here. All right. Okay, now I want to sort of get in the center. I like to get the two loaves as even as possible, but if I can't, I always find someone who would like the bigger loaf. Okay, all right. Now, this is called a baker's bench knife. And before I move it, I should put a little bit of flour along here. Okay. All right, here goes. Okay. A little bit more flour here won't hurt. Okay. stick. Well, we'll fix that in a minute here. Get a little flour there. Tame it down. All right. Okay, here's where we separate the men from the boys. Okay. Now it's going to spread out a little bit, but we get good oven springs, so I don't have to worry. It'll come back into a loaf. Big bubble here. Let me get it. There she goes. All right, let's turn this around. And now we got to get some flour over here. All right. Now I want to keep the distance in between here, otherwise I don't get a nice brown and what is that? Lively dough, which is what we want, because we want when we bake this off, we want real good oven spring. Right there. Oh, those look nice. Let's see if we can doctor this one a little bit. There's another bubble. Yeah, this dough is full of gas. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we have to put a cover on this because we don't want it to dry out. So here we take our bag from the vegetable bag and we cut it apart and put it over like this. And I bring the center down, and I'll bring this down and this. And now what I found is I'm going to put this in the fridge, and what happens is, you know, I go into the fridge for other items and the air wants to make it come off. So I don't stick it to the pan, but what I do is stick it to itself. And then it'll stay down. Because we use the fridge for a lot of other things. And we just tuck this down. And this. I'll put one little piece of tape here. And a little bit here, and fold this end in, right there. Put a little piece of tape on here. Tuck this corner down in here. And this has to go in now for, oh, good 12 hours. Makes it come nice. It makes, by putting it in the fridge and letting it rise real slow and proof, you know, they say the last rise is always called the proof. And when it proofs real slow, it makes a really nice crust with little blisters on it and nice and crisp. Okay, that's all set, ready to go there now. Okay, all right, into the fridge. Okay, have a good sleep. We'll take care of you in the morning. Okay, we're getting ready to bake the loaves off, and I have the loaves here. I've taken them out of the refrigerator, and now I'm going to take the plastic cover off, and I do that, it comes right off, but I do it very gently. And now I have to slash the tops of the loaves. And if I were making a ciabatta, I wouldn't slash the tops, but because we want these loaves up and we don't want like a big tunnel under the crust, we have to slash it. Now for that we use a lame. That's a French term. It means a knife. And I make my own lames, and I also give them to people that I show how to make this particular bread. And the way I do this, I take an ordinary teaspoon, and I have a Dremel tool, and I just go down and take the sides off until it looks like that. Then I take a little file, and I take this is a stainless steel two-bladed shaving blade, and I use this razor blade. So now, what I do, the first cut I will make with just the weight of the blade, and I just get through the first little skin that's on there. Then I'll be able to go down deeper. And the last cut, I'll put it on a slant and actually be trying to cut underneath the top. This is very, very slack dough, so now I'll turn it and I'll do this one here. First, just the weight of the blade, or this, I should say the whole lame. Okay, now the second one I go down straight. And then lastly, I'll cut underneath the skin on an angle. Okay. Now I can turn this if I have where I have a couple of puckers here. Well, I can just turn this and come around this way. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the oven. Now my oven, I put water in there in that pan which is made steam. And so I don't want to stand right in front of the oven where the steam's going to hit me, so I'll stand to one side. Okay, now I've got 30 minutes on my clock, and it's going to take 30 minutes for this to bake completely. My breads have been in the oven now for 15 minutes, and I'm going to open the oven, and I'm going to have to cover. I'm going to have to cover them because I don't want them to get too dark or to burn. So I just put this cover over it. Okay, that's going to take another 15 minutes and we'll have bread. As a reminder, I want to stress about these gloves. You want to make sure that you have real good gloves, because 475 degrees, that's just 25 below 500, it's pretty hot, and so this way you don't have to show burns that you have, because I know they hurt. So my clock is just about running down here, and we'll see what we baked. Okay. Let's see what we have. This closed up. Oh, look at these beautiful loaves. Okay, get these off here. Let's see, let me get my scissors. Cut that part of the paper. I don't put any oil or grease on the bottom. In fact, there's no shortening or anything on these loaves. I use parchment paper. And, okay. Oh boy, that's a loaf of bread. Let's get the other one. This kind of bread, I notice that people give the title to it as rustic bread, and it is rustic, but it is good bread. Okay. All right, now I'm going to put these to cool, and it's going to take about a good hour or so for them to cool before I can slice them. Okay, you can see that one of my breads has cooled off enough, and I've started to slice it. And I'd like to show you what the interior looks like. This crumb is very open. I can see right through it, both sides, and it's a nice sized bread. You make a good sandwich out of it. It makes excellent French toast because the batter will go into all these little holes and stuff, and it'll be French toast like you've never tasted before. And also, it's good even as dry toast, or better yet, as garlic toast. That really is good. I could eat the whole loaf myself. And my crust is nice, full of nice little blisters and crisp. Here's a little thing that I made that I would like to show to people. And if somebody's handy around the house, it was very easy to make this. When I sliced my bread, we found that, especially if we had a long loaf, we found that to get it in the bag was a pain in the neck. Bread slices falling all over the place. So I know on the big commercial machines, they have a thing made of, like it's a rack made out of steel. And so what I did was, for us, I went over to Home Depot and I picked up some thin oak, and I made this little trough here to hold the slices. And then I took one of my cutting boards, cut it on an angle, and put a couple of inserts in it, and lo and behold, we have a nice little thing to pull our bags over, and then just slide the bread out into the bag. And somebody's handy around the house with a saw, why, it wasn't hard to make it. So I just thought you might like to see it. Some of you bread bakers might like to consider making one of these. I think while I'm here, I'd like to show some of the breads that we make over here. Let me get this roll of towels out of the way. All right, this bread here, that is known as a couronne. Now, it's a little difficult, but after someone has a little experience, it's not that hard to make. And it's the type of bread that, well, I always say if you want to show off, you can cut it in half, scoop out some of the crumb, and then put all sorts of like cold cuts and lettuce, like a sub sandwich, and then cut it into wedges, and then put the whole thing back for your company back on the plate. All right, and the next one here, these are cinnamon buns, and they're a little large, but I can eat a half of one anyway, but they are delicious. They have raisins and nuts and cinnamon and brown sugar. And up here is a picture that when I was at my friend's bakery, we decided we were going to make some bread. I had already made that sourdough and took it for them to see. And there's 18 loaves of corn rye bread, which is a sort of a heavy European bread. It's good, but I like more of a sandwich rye, which is this one over here, this rye here, I made that for the Chandler Fire Department over there down near Ray Road, and it was one of the firemen's birthday, and they just loved it. This bread here, this is a rye bread and a pumpernickel swirl, and it's not hard to make. It's a nice bread, and it tastes good. You get the sweetness of the pumpernickel. This bread here, this is a Czech Republic, their annual Christmas bread, and it's a sort of a looser dough, but it's a braid, and it's not too hard to do. This braid here, this bread is an egg bread, and it's 6 strands braided, and it's more of a brioche type of a bread, and a lot of Jewish families use that for ceremonies. Over here we have some ciabatta rolls. I don't make the big ciabatta rolls. I make the little ones because they're more dainty and they're like a little dinner roll. And I always pre-cut them in half, but not all the way. And we serve them warm, and so they're good. These are bialys, and bialy is like a bagel, but it has no hole. Instead, it has onions in there, and they're good. I make them every so often. And over here is these are a couple of breads like we just made, and these 2 breads were made by Air Force captain, and he loves bread and he likes to bake in spare time. And these 2 loaves up here show Kalamata olives, and we put the olives in so that you get nice big chunks, not just little bits and pieces. And then lastly, here is a bread that we do. I take those at Christmas time in a basket, sliced, and with that little cloth with it. And we usually take that to some people that through the year we've made friends, and they've been nice to us. And that's it, and that's going to end this tutorial. I hope everybody makes good bread.